So welcome everyone. I'm Kendall Hagenson. I'm the owner of Vancouver Wellness Studio in downtown Vancouver, Washington. I'm also a therapist on our team. We have a multidisciplinary healthcare team at VWS, and all of our mental health therapists are trauma specialists, and Jessica is also our corporate wellness coordinator. So we are here today to help you continue to support your team's mental health as we are nearing a year of the pandemic and the many, many ripple effects on businesses and employees. One of the most important being mental health, of course. So we're going to use the term trauma throughout the webinar. Please take care of yourself as you're watching the webinar. Our presentation is not meant to be traumatic in itself. Sometimes the topic can feel heavy, so just monitor how you're doing, pause throughout if you need to, and take a break, just as needed, just checking in with yourself. So some of you might not have actually viewed COVID as a truly traumatic experience. We tend to think of trauma as abuse or a single event. The important thing to know about trauma is that it's really less about the event and more about how each of our brains and bodies responds to that event. So for example, two people can be walking down the street and witness the same crime happen. One of them remembers it and feels like, okay, that was a little scary, but they're generally fine afterwards. They can sleep okay. They don't develop any new symptoms. And the other person can end up developing PTSD from seeing that crime, and then they're having trouble sleeping. They're developing panic attacks, things like that, having flashbacks of the event. And that's really about all the experiences they've had in life up until that point and how their brain is wired. So as a general rule, when we begin to take on a more trauma-informed lens as business owners and employees, when someone is interacting with us in a way that feels surprising, abrupt, or when behavior doesn't seem to match the situation, it's important to step back and think about what happened to that person or what is that person going through, rather than what is wrong with them and how can I change them. And that was very important before COVID, but even with the experience of COVID, it becomes that much more important, because I can imagine that most of you watching this today have had more and more of those interactions with colleagues or within your business that feel confusing and surprising. So we're going to, at this point, we would love to invite you to pause actually the webinar and take some time to write down your own experiences that you've had in the past year with COVID. And if you are watching this in a group with your team, you can pause and have a discussion, a live discussion, of course, with your team. But we want to give some examples of what we've been seeing from clients and hearing from business owners, and also what Washington State is saying that they're really seeing and reporting to us. So Washington State has a really awesome PDF that they shared with us, and it has a lot of guidance for building resilience in the workplace, but also has reports of what's been happening, and statistics of what's been happening over the past year for businesses. If you would like that PDF sent to you, you can email Jessica, Jessica at Vancouver Wellness Studio.com. Throughout the webinar, if you want any of the things we're talking about sent to you, you can always just email Jessica to grab those. So in this PDF, they share that some of the things that businesses are reporting are emotional outbursts, having trouble concentrating, withdrawal from others, loss of interest in the job, trouble completing tasks. And these are all things that they're seeing and hearing from employees, but this is all also happening at home, right, with our families. So other signs of stress, burnout, and trauma that we've seen are conflict between employees, toxic relationships forming, supervisors feeling overwhelmed, reports of higher and more chronic physical pain in addition to anxiety and depression. And this, of course, impacts employee engagement and productivity. Okay, so now we invite you to pause, write down your experience of the past year, whatever it has been for you, and see if you have some commonalities with what we've shared so far. If you're coming back from that brief pause, I want to talk to you a bit more about trauma and how it shows up in the body. So one idea that I always share with my clients when we're talking about trauma is called window of tolerance. And basically, we are all born with this window, and we kind of have a top and bottom. And anything that happens in life within the window, we can generally handle. We don't get too overwhelmed. We don't develop new symptoms of anxiety or depression. But throughout life, we might have illness or trauma or external stressors, and our window will get smaller at times. It'll expand at times. And what happens when life takes us outside of the window in either direction, we tend to develop these new symptoms that can be really uncomfortable and cause us issues. So this is the same idea. This is showing us the symptoms of discharged traumatic stress. So as you can see here, it's showing that our sympathetic nervous system is basically that top line of our window, and the parasympathetic nervous system is the bottom line. The green line in between basically shows the normal range. So anything that happens in that normal range, we can handle. When we go outside of the window in either direction, we start to see these symptoms. So the sympathetic nervous system, many of you have probably heard of before, or you've heard of the term fight or flight. And then the parasympathetic nervous system is our rest and digest system. We need both of them to remain in balance or remain in homeostasis. And so it's similar to like the heater and air conditioner in your home. The heater and air conditioner work together, to keep your home comfortable and the temperature you would like. If your heater got stuck on all the time and you couldn't turn it off, or your air conditioner got stuck on and you couldn't turn it off, then you would be very uncomfortable. And so if we get stuck in the sympathetic nervous system and go outside the window that direction, we tend to see symptoms of anxiety and panic, hypervigilance, chronic pain. If we get stuck outside in the parasympathetic nervous system, we tend to see those lower mood symptoms like depression, exhaustion, chronic fatigue, low blood pressure, poor digestion. And you can see here when we get stuck in trauma or in our trauma response or chronic stress, it really affects us physically, in addition to mental health. COVID has narrowed everybody's window of tolerance at one point or another. For many, the window remains small because we haven't actually experienced safety from the collective trauma of COVID yet. It's still happening. Our brains can't process it fully without assistance. So many employees are stuck in their trauma and stress response. When we operate outside of the window or from our stress response in our daily life, we can't actually be expected to feel motivated or think creatively. Surviving the day becomes the only priority of the brain, and those everyday tasks can start to feel impossible. Jessica, would you like to share a bit more about how the pandemic continues to affect mental health?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kendall. So what we're seeing as therapists, when people don't address their trauma, includes a number of difficulties, both on the individual level as well as the organizational, community, and business level. People still employed are missing more work, and they're struggling to work as well now as they did before the pandemic and the extra events of last year. More relationships with coworkers and supervisors are becoming toxic and dysfunctional as the stress continues, and trauma reactions are not processed or healed. I want to share some really eye-opening statistics from Washington State Department of Health's February COVID-19 report. So rates of psychological distress, suicidal ideation, and suspected overdoses from all drugs have all exceeded rates in the corresponding week a year ago. And for example, according to the 2020 census data, household survey data indicated that 1.92 million adults in Washington reported symptoms of anxiety on all or most days in mid-January, while nearly 1.2 million reported the same frequency of symptoms of depression. When I read this, I was really curious what percentage of the population this would represent, because I've heard so many clients, family, and friends tell me that they're experiencing increased symptoms of anxiety and depression in the last year. And it's especially from those who've had some sort of pre-existing mental health challenges. So right now, the Washington State population is about 7.8 million people. And so with the anxiety being 1.92 out of 7.8 million people, it has about 25% of the adults, because these statistics are for just the adults in the state. And depression, 1.25 million out of 7.8, that would be only about 16%. And we know that the younger someone is, the more greater the frequency of experiencing depression and anxiety symptoms. So 1 in 4 adults right now experiencing anxiety, that's substantial. We also are seeing an increase in chronic pain and physical illnesses, and sometimes that's due to poor coping choices, so maybe an increase in substance use or risky behaviors. And when employees are experiencing mental health challenges like these, this has an impact on businesses. According to publications by the CDC, poor mental health and stress can negatively affect employees in a lot of ways, in just job performance, overall productivity, engagement, showing up and mentally and emotionally engaging in their work, how they communicate with coworkers, and then their physical capability, and also just normal daily functioning. Mental health challenges such as depression are associated with higher rates of disability and unemployment. Depression interferes with a person's ability to complete a physical job task about 20% of the time, and reduce cognitive performance about 35% of the time. And only 57% of employees who report moderate depression and 40% of those who report severe depression ever receive treatment to control those depression symptoms. Even after taking other mental health risks, such as smoking or obesity, into account, employees at high risk of depression had the highest healthcare costs during the 3 years after an initial health risk assessment. Unaddressed trauma and stress causes increased healthcare costs significantly, which employers pay for through increased benefit costs. According to the Washington State Economic Recovery Dashboard, we can see statistics and trends county by county of how employment, business sales, and income, as well as consumer spending, has changed over the past year. Manufacturing, leisure or hospitality, and educational services were the top 3 industries showing a decrease in taxable business income and employment in 2020. What does this mean for the individuals who are still working in those fields? Unemployment, the resulting financial distress, and loss of health benefits can have really severe impacts on a person's mental health and well-being. For those individuals who are left working in the fields, they're experiencing increased demands, stressful promotions, often without adequate pay or training, and new safety-related policies and restrictions, sometimes that change pretty quickly. The stress is up, and the end of the timeline, unfortunately, isn't known yet. Kendall, can you share a little bit more about some of the hope you have in this situation?
Yeah, I have a lot of hope. There is something you can do. There's something we can all do. And I do believe that there are a lot of lessons in the past year that are going to make our businesses better and our lives better and our community better. So I do have hope, but there is work that needs to be done. So we have put together a PDF as a starting place for your leadership team that talks about trauma and how to use trauma-informed language and behaviors in the workplace, and what not to say and do, which is just as important. If you'd like that PDF sent to you, you can email Jessica at vancouverwellnessstudio.com. And yes, that is 3 S's in a row, if you were wondering. So the most important thing when we're looking at what can be done here, we really can't stress this enough. It's so important for people to receive professional support in processing through their trauma. Even though we've all had a collective and similar experience throughout the past year, we all have our own life situations and stories impacting our response, and we have to provide support at the individual level. We haven't experienced safety from the pandemic, so our brain really can't process this without assistance. One type of trauma therapy that is extremely efficient and effective, and we want you to know about, is called EMDR. EMDR stands for Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing, and is considered by trauma experts, including the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and Defense and the American Psychological Association, to be a frontline treatment for PTSD. It is a type of therapy that can help people heal from overwhelming life events that contribute to chronic stress, which can lead to emotional and physical health issues. Therapy does begin working immediately and can reduce trauma symptoms in as quick as a few sessions. We've included some information on EMDR on that PDF resource as well, if you'd like to read more about how it works. On a basic level, the process of EMDR works to reduce distress related to experiences or memories that have resulted in a trauma response for our brains. For example, as therapists, we've seen some commonalities among clients and their level of distress throughout certain weeks of the past year. So one week where everyone had extremely heightened distress was when we had the wildfires in our area in the Pacific Northwest here in the fall, and most people weren't able to go outside at one point or another. And going outside had become a lot of people's only coping mechanism at that point with COVID and world events, that they felt like, okay, at least I can go outside. And the fires happened and then they couldn't go outside. So the reason for the overwhelming sense of distress wasn't because of the fires alone. It was because our brains were primed from all of the COVID-related isolating experiences up until that point. So with EMDR therapy, we help clients process through the initial and ongoing distress from COVID or the past year, and then future happenings or possible happenings. So the result would be that another fire or a shutdown from COVID wouldn't be as distressing to them, and they would be able to function better day to day. I realize this doesn't sound fun. It is hard work to process through trauma, but it is an amazing resource we have available in our field to help people not suffer and to prevent the long-term effects of chronic stress. So I want to give you a little break from all this information and share a short visualization that we use to aid in the EMDR therapy process. And this is not trauma processing. It's a simple visualization. It's meant to be relaxing and helpful, but again, check in with yourself throughout. And if you need to pause or skip this section, that's okay too. So I'm going to invite you to come to a comfortable position. And before we go there fully, I want to explain the visualization a little bit more. So it's called Calm, Peaceful Place. And it's essentially imagining your happy place. But there's a couple parameters. So it can be in somewhere you've been before or never been. It can be somewhere that exists or is completely imaginary. It can be a combination of environments. It just needs to be a place where you can vividly imagine yourself there and feel calm, content, happy, safe, relaxed, and generally you want to picture yourself there alone. If there are other people in the image, they are strangers and they're only contributing to the positivity and safety of your image. You can bring in people who you have real relationships with. Just being careful to make sure they are only bringing positivity to your environment. So finding that comfortable position, if you need to shift your seat, you can come to a place of eyes closed, as Jessica is, or you can take what we call a soft gaze, where you're sort of looking down to the ground a little bit in front of you. Taking a moment to settle in. And just breathing, inhaling and exhaling through your nose. Letting your arms and legs be heavy, relaxing your muscles. Breathing. Continuing to breathe and noticing what comes to mind when you think about a calm, peaceful place. Imagine yourself there as vividly as you can. Notice what you see around you, in front of you, above, below. Notice what you can hear and feel when you're there. Notice what the weather's like where you are. Notice what emotions you have when you're there. Notice how your body feels when you're there. And take a snapshot of this environment and yourself within it. Knowing that you can come back anytime you need. Taking a deep breath, wiggling toes and fingers, stretching. Welcome back. Well, we hope that was relaxing and helpful to you. And Jessica is going to continue on and share some information about how you can really move forward with getting the support that your team needs right now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kendall. I definitely feel more relaxed. So we've heard from different employers in the last year stories of how the year and its events have affected them. And so we've created a quick and efficient way in response for local employers to support their employees. It's all been in response to the devastation created by the pandemic, the riots, the political unrest, and the wildfires of the past year. We know how overwhelming it's been to operate a business in this environment. It's easy to fixate on the immediate, tangible needs, but you'll be amazed at how much more you'll be able to accomplish together when everyone is well supported. There's something you can do. We make it simple to provide an easy entry point to access the professional support your employees need to process everything that's happened and to move beyond the seemingly endless period of uncertainty to a brighter and more productive future. People produce their best work when they are feeling their best. Imagine emerging from the pandemic with a healthier business and a healthier team. It's not only possible to support your team in this way, individual trauma therapy is an essential survival mechanism. Our new corporate wellness program allows employers to provide 4 individual therapy sessions for their employees through Vancouver Wellness Studio. We're different from an EAP traditionally, and many benefits packages include an employee assistance program, which is great. I have used them several times in the past. This program's different from what current benefit companies might offer in a number of ways. So first, it's personalized. Employees get to go online, read about their therapists, and choose the one that feels is the best fit to them. It's easy. Getting started with your therapist is quick and easy. It's all done online. Availability is key. We guarantee immediate openings to see your chosen therapist. We're holistic. All of our approaches are holistic and integrative, and it's easy to get a referral between providers in the studio for services such as massage and acupuncture. All of our providers are trauma focused. We're trauma specialists. So not just the typical problem solving or solution focused therapy that you might see in an EAP therapist. It's long term. So we're easy to continue with your therapist, or you can switch to a different one if you would like after those initial 4 sessions. We're also local. So clients have the opportunity to meet in person, and it's not just limited to online telehealth services or phone services. Many EAP programs hire statewide, so the EAP therapist may be too far away to ever actually meet in person for a session, but we're just down here in downtown Vancouver. Let's talk a little bit more about how the program works and the details. So, as I said, each employee would receive 4 individual counseling sessions at no cost to them. During those 4 sessions, employees can begin to process some of the trauma we've all experienced in this past year and learn some new skills that will reveal the benefits of therapy and serve them into the future. Employees can then decide to continue on their own. And I do want to pause and say we've currently added 2 other options. So a couple employers have asked us about adding acupuncture as an option or massage as an option. And so yes, if the employer would like to make all 3 of those options available to the employees, that is an option. The same prices would stay the same as what we have discussed today, what you see on the screen there. And again, the employer just chooses what's available, and the employee would pick confidentially which service they would like to receive. So it's easy to get started. The employer would just start by choosing the number of employees that they would like to enroll. Then we take care of the easy onboarding process. You would start seeing improvements in well-being and productivity pretty quickly. The mental health services include both telehealth and in-person sessions available with all COVID safety measures in place. There's ongoing support for the business to encourage employee participation. And then there's that easy onboarding for employees to just get started and access their 4 sessions right away. The cost of the 4 sessions is $520 per employee, and we're currently offering group pay in full discounts. So if you enroll 5 to 25 employees, then that's a 5% pay in full discount. If you enroll 26 to 50 employees, or option B, that's a 10% pay in full discount. And then option C is enrolling 51 to 80 employees, and that is a 20% pay in full discount. I want to let you know that space is pretty limited because there is more need than ever right now. Who do you know in your team, in your organization, in your business that would benefit from a program like this? I invite you to take a minute and really just think through who might really benefit from an opportunity to process trauma, or to just let their body relax and heal through acupuncture or massage. If you're ready to get started, then the first step is to choose the number of employees that you would like to enroll, and then I'll work with you to get started. Just email me, jessica@vancouverwellnessstudio.com, and we'll set up a time to chat. If you're not sure who would want to engage, then that's okay. We can help with this too. We've got a survey template that you can share with your teams, can create your own version of it to help you gauge what the need is and what the interest is in an extra benefit like this. And then if you got questions, you just want to talk one-on-one with me about how it might work in your situation, or ask some specific questions, I'm happy to meet with you as well. Just reach out. So Kendall, back to you for just take us into that future vision again, of how you think life might be post-pandemic.
So truly imagine being on the other side of the pandemic with an even healthier business and team than before COVID. We see it happening. It's definitely possible. The reality is that here we are a year later, and people are still stuck in a trauma response, not only within your company, but throughout the entire world, which can be overwhelming to even conceptualize. But by treating trauma at an individual level, we have an opportunity to change the course of employees, and in turn, entire businesses' future, from one of suffering to a future of health and continued growth. The feedback we've received from employees in the program so far is not only that it has been effective for them, but that they are incredibly appreciative to their employer for caring enough to find the right resource right now. So your next step would be to let Jessica know that you'd like to set up a meeting and learn more, or that you're ready to enroll. And again, it's really a seamless, simple onboarding process. We've designed it so that it's not extra work for you as a business owner. So if you do have questions, please email Jessica at VancouverWellnessStudio.com. You can also call us. You can call the front desk anytime and we'll get back to you, 360-828-1429. We're happy to answer your questions. We've gotten a lot of requests for sort of trainings or other classes that we could add to this corporate wellness program. And the answer to that is yes, we can do that for you and your team and design something that uniquely fits your needs. And we've been doing that throughout COVID for multiple businesses. So we're happy to do that. Feel free to reach out with any questions.